Hey, I'm Sven Masterson, one of the co-founders and mentors in the Mentoring Men community, and I show men how to transform broken, painful, disconnected, and dying relationships into connected, intimate, thriving, and passionate relationships. And in this video, part 2 of understanding how to navigate the space of wondering if your wife or partner is having an emotional or physical affair, I want to talk to you about how to get more clarity on what is going on. Now, just to reorient you, in case you haven't watched part 1, which I hope there'll be some sort of link around here to do so, I want you to understand that I'm talking to a man who is exhibiting behaviors, who is witnessing behaviors or observations of a partner who looks like there could be something fishy going on. There might be an affair, there might be some sort of giving away of energy in the relationship. And this man, the man this video is for, is having a hard time even coming to a decision or a conclusion if his wife is doing something inappropriate. These men get wrapped up in knots trying to figure this out. They try to talk to their partner about what's going on, their discontent, their frustration, and they generally get gaslit into a corner, shamed some way. Well, you're a bad man, and you have this problem and that problem, and the guy experiences his own shortcomings, and he shuts up and he says, I don't even know what's right anymore. I don't know what's up and down. I see weird things going on, but when I bring it up, it turns into a slugfest. Now, not everybody's the same way, but this is a pretty common pattern, that a man sees something going on and he can't get an answer from his partner if she is giving some sort of, romantic or possibly sexual energy to another man. What do you do when this happens? Well, in the first video, I talked to you about making sure you understand the difference between observation, inference, and interpretation, so that you're clear that your observation is one thing and your interpretation may be based on anxiety, fear, insecurity, etc. And so supposing you've already kind of gone through that, you're fairly settled in your ability to separate your observation from your interpretation. Now it's time to go a little bit deeper into this. Okay, so what do you do when you're solidly handling your thinking and your objective thinking, what feels to you like it's objective, it might not be, is telling you, yeah, something is weird is going on here. Well, let me give you one kind of tip from talking to hundreds of men a year in this situation, and for several years. One very reliable pattern I have seen for men who feel like their wife or partner might be cheating in some way is that when a man is experiencing that in his head, he has a high probability of being wrong. When he's experiencing it in his gut, he has a high probability of being correct. Now, the million-dollar question then is, how do you know the difference between your gut and your head? Well, one pattern, again, that I've seen, and I know this is not a scientific pattern, this is just my anecdotal evidence as a guy talking to hundreds of people a year that experience this, is that when a man is in his head, he's caught up in what we would call the monkey mind. He's ruminating on anxious thoughts about the future. I mentioned this in part 1 of this series, that a man is in his thoughts, and he's generally catastrophizing about the future. Oh no, she's having an affair. I'm going to end up divorced. I just know it. And he says those kinds of things. We like to say to these guys, stop reading the tea leaves. I know you think you can read the future, but you can't. Because though we all have brains that are doing this, they're predicting the future, they're just predictions. And our brains are predicting the future based on our interpretation of experiences that we store as beliefs and memories. And so it's very shady. It's very error prone. And so when you're up in your head, it's not a reliable place to try to come to some conclusions about whether or not your wife or partner is having an affair. Yet when a man has a gut feeling, he's not, well, first of all, he can usually describe that. He usually uses language like that I know in my gut. And he's not saying that because he watched a video where we said that. There's just a part of him that has a deep knowing, and it's not accompanied by thoughts and ideas about the future. It's actually about what feels true right now. And he's not catastrophizing. He might experience moments of anxiety, but he has this kind of deeper awareness within himself that feels more like intuition. Now, a really anxious person is generally not good at sensing their intuition. They actually sense what I would say is their interoception, which is how feelings feel within their body. And sometimes they can mistake this with intuition. And that's not helpful, right? And so you don't want to try to confuse a fearful, anxious way of thinking the future is going to unfold as intuition. I personally don't believe that it is. Very intuitive people are not generally thinking about later. They're very present. They're understanding what is now. And so if you can make this distinction, great. If you can't, don't sweat it. I just wanted you to understand that there is a reliable pattern, at least in what I've seen, that the gut generally is right and the brain is very error prone. Now, having said that, you're a man in a relationship. It looks like the partner you have is doing some things that you feel uncomfortable with. You've tried maybe speaking to her and asked her if she's having an affair. She denies it. We're just friends, all this stuff. I get it. It's very complicated to sort this out. And so here's what I want to encourage you to do next. I want you to let go of needing to define if something is or is not an affair. Now, I'm not saying that the behavior is not important, but a lot of times we're just driving ourselves nuts as humans by needing to try to make finite, which is really nuanced and difficult. And so it's also not really necessary to do this. You don't really need to define if your wife or partner is having an affair. There's actually a much better way to proceed in this scenario than trying to answer that question. And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to get a couple sheets of paper. And I want you to take the first piece of paper and I want you to put a heading on the top that says, I like to be a man who. And then you can put an ellipsis. I like to be a man who. And on this rest of this sheet of paper, I want you to list everything that you enjoy being as a man in the world, including towards your spouse. You might use things like generous, kind, benevolent, patient, supportive, financially supportive, emotionally supportive, protecting, curious, empathic, compassionate, these kind of words. But I want them to be legitimate, meaning I want you to write down words that you really like to be. I like to be a man who, okay? And I want you to take as long as you need to do the exercise. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause it, come back here. It's the internet, it'll be here forever. And then go do that. Now, when you're done making this list, I want you to circle every one of those words where you only like to be that way towards your romantic partner, okay? And if you want to use a different color, that's fine, but you're going to get a list then of who you like to be and a sub-list of who you like to be towards a partner exclusively. Now, quick caveat, I'm making this video for men, generally, and heterosexual men in monogamous, committed relationships. It's not that I don't care about everybody else, but this is the man I'm speaking to in this video. And so the context then is to circle what you like to give exclusively to your monogamous committed partner. Now, suppose you have other words on that list that you're not sure about. You might put a question mark on some of those. You might be thinking, well, it depends. Well, make another list on paper called your it depends list. And I want you to put on that list anything that feels like, well, I like to be this way, and I like to be this way towards her, but it depends. And then I want you to describe, well, it depends on what? Because this list is going to tell you a little bit about where you have dependency on your partner for how you are as a man. And I would tell you, well, that's a couple problems. One, it's a power giveaway, and it's an agency giveaway, and it's an indication that your regard for your partner is probably transactional. And that's not a good place to build a relationship. And I'm not going to talk to you about that in this video, but I want you to make that list. And if you like, book a call with me when you talk about it. So let's go back to this other list. I like to be a man who, and then has all your things listed. That list is going to serve first as your definition to clarify who you like to be. Now, you might get another color, maybe red or blue, or whatever different color. And I want you to also note any of those that you're not doing such a great job with right now in life. Maybe you've been doing it for the last 2 or 3 days. That doesn't count. I want you to be thinking about the last 90 days. On the list of things that you've got in front of you over the last 90 days, how are you doing with those? I want you to give yourself a grade on each of those, right? You can use a letter grade if you want. You can use a scale of 1 to 10. I want you to score yourself on all of the things you said you love to be on that piece of paper, because you need to have some accountability, first of all, when you're thinking about what your partner is or isn't doing, to describing who you like to be and calling yourself into some level of accountability with how well you're being the man you like to be. Okay? And if you've got items to work on, before you try to worry what happens with your wife or partner or what she is or isn't doing, I want you to first take the time to address those issues. Because if you don't, every time you go to your partner, she's going to push those buttons. She knows where you're not doing well. She knows where you're insecure. She knows where you're ashamed. She knows where you're not feeling so good about yourself. She knows where you're not doing so well. And if she is or isn't cheating, all that aside, most partners, when they feel accused or judged or attacked, are going to counter that with their own form of attack. And so that's not the reason to be a man of integrity and to do the things we enjoy doing. But it's important that if you want to get to the bottom of what's going on in a relationship, that you be a person of integrity, which means you're living by your value system impeccably. Okay, and so it's worth taking the next 2 or 3 or 4 months to get good at being who you love to be. It's going to, first of all, improve your life. It's going to probably improve your relationship, but it is also going to give you firmness to stand in front of a person who may gaslight you if they are up to something that they feel ashamed about. Okay, so that's one list. I want you to take another piece of paper, and I want you to put a heading on there that says, I am a man who likes to be with, or you could say, I like to be with a woman who. And I want you to list what you enjoy and appreciate from women. And I don't mean just the partner that you have. What do you like in females in general? What do you like in your mother, your sister, your colleagues, your neighbors, your daughters, your partner, right? I want you just to think about, what do you enjoy in receiving from females in a relationship? Then I want you to do the same thing we did before. I want you to circle what you believe in your value system should be something that they express only to you as their monogamous, committed partner. Okay? You're going to have circles on your list. For example, maybe you would say, I like to be with a woman who gives me sexual attention. That's going to be a common one that men are going to say, okay, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're probably going to circle that one. Unless, if you're in a monogamous, committed relationship, you're going to circle that because you're going to say, yeah, I believe that I should be the sole recipient of that. Okay, good. So now you're getting another list that clarifies what you want in a relationship from a partner, and a subset or sublist of what you believe is exclusively something that I don't want to say belongs to you. We're not property of each other, and we're not entitled to this, but we do make commitments to one another. And based on the commitments we have made to one another in relationship, you can circle those things confidently. Like, yeah, we committed to being this. And so you're going to have a few things that you circled there. Now, you can go through a third time with another pen or another color, and you can write a question mark anywhere that feels hazy to you, where you've circled it as feeling exclusive, but either you have a question if you're being immature by desiring exclusivity there, or you believe that your partner sees it differently. And what you're going to get in this exercise with these two lists is clarity about what and who you like to be and what you like a partner to be, and what part of that feels to you in your value system like it's exclusive. You're also going to get a series of question marks that's going to help you to understand, where am I uncertain if my value system is legit? Okay, and that's a good thing to talk to a mentor about, by the way. Then you're going to get another question mark or another list of questions about areas that you feel like should be exclusive, but your partner doesn't feel like they're matching that in their behavior or actions. And that's a great thing to cue up a conversation about after you've reached this point of clarity. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Can I get my wife to make these kind of lists? And I would say this: if your relationship is in a place where you have good communication, you can have reasonable conversations without them just, escalating or just breaking down into chaos and a slugfest, then yeah, it might be good to invite your partner to create a list. I am a woman who and then fills out who she likes to be and makes her little circles for exclusivity. And then you can invite her to make another list. I like to be with a man who, and she writes everything that she likes, and she circles what she feels like should be exclusive. And then she goes through and says, these are areas that I don't feel too certain in myself about, if I'm mature in what I expect. And she might mark it up in a couple other ways. These are areas I don't feel like my partner is actually living up to this, right? And again, this exercise is to help you to get a little bit more clear on what you picture as a great relationship and the delta between that and what is, okay? Because it doesn't really matter at the moment if you define something as an affair. You either have the relationship that you want or you don't. And so when we talk about affairs, is she cheating, is she not cheating, what we're really focused on is answering the question, is something I don't want happening? And I would suggest, brother, that a better way to be, a more effective way to be in the world, is to say, is what I want happening? And if it's not, okay, then I have a next series of steps to go through in order to address, what do I do when I don't have the relationship I want? Now, I'm going to talk to you about that in probably the next video. In the meantime, if you have questions about these exercises, if you have questions about, why this, what does this mean, or you have a bunch of question marks on your list because you said, man, I circled things that I want exclusively and I don't know if I feel clear about that, I want you to consider reaching out. You can set up a complimentary session with myself or one of the other mentors and mentoring men, and we'll help you to work through those things so that you do have more clarity. You can find the link for how to do that below in the description. And until then, I will see you in the next video. Take care.